Listen to me for the next few minutes. This might be the most important thing you hear all week. A life is never destroyed by one bad day. It is destroyed by one quiet thought, repeated so many times it stops feeling like a thought and starts feeling like the truth. Today it whispers once. Next week it whispers louder. By next year, it isn't whispering anymore, it's driving. And the thought that does the most damage is never the dramatic one. It's the calm one. The one that sounds almost reasonable. Maybe I peaked already. Maybe I'm just built this way. Maybe some men are simply meant to struggle. It doesn't scream, so you never question it. You just accept it. And acceptance repeated for years becomes a cage you built brick by brick with your own hands. Here's the part nobody explains to you. Your brain does not care whether a thought is true. It only cares whether it has heard that thought before. Repeat a lie enough mornings in a row, and your mind stops fact-checking it. It just files it under fact. This is how capable men shrink. This is how good years get wasted, defending against threats that were never real in the first place. But long before modern psychology gave this a name, a handful of men had already cracked it. They understood that a dark thought is not an order you have to follow. It is not a prediction, it is not even yours until the moment you decide to keep it. That single idea kept a slave's mind free while his body was owned by someone else. It kept an emperor level-headed while his empire came apart at the seams. And it kept ordinary men upright when they had lost everything they thought defined them. Today I'm giving you 7 Stoic laws, 7 ways to catch a negative thought before it becomes your identity. Fair warning, some of this will sting a little. That's fine. Nothing that actually changes you is supposed to feel comfortable. Stick around for the 7th law, because it's the one that makes the other 6 actually work. Let's get into it. Law 1. Stop treating every thought like it's true. Here's the trap almost every man falls into. He assumes that if a thought shows up in his own head, it must be accurate, simply because of where it came from. That assumption is wrong. Your brain generates thousands of thoughts a day. Most are junk. Some are useful, and a handful are just fear, dressed up well enough to fool you. But you rarely stop to sort them. You just absorb whatever shows up. And that single habit ends up steering your entire life without your permission. Think of it this way. If a stranger showed up at your front door at 2 in the morning, you wouldn't hand him your keys before asking who he is. But a thought shows up saying you're not good enough, and you let it walk straight in, take a seat, and stay for years without ever checking its credentials. A man named Epictetus figured this out long before any of us. He was born a slave. His body was owned by another man, beaten, controlled, given no say in his own circumstances. But he found one thing that couldn't be taken from him. A thought is only a guest. It is not a command. It only earns power once you stop examining it and start becoming it. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The day you stopped questioning your own thoughts was the day you quietly handed over control of your life. So right now, name the sentence your mind repeats about you most often. I'm behind. I'm going to fail at this. Everyone else already figured it out. Now ask a harder question. What actual proof do you have? Not the feeling behind it, the proof. Most of these thoughts fall apart the second you force them to answer that, because they were never built to survive scrutiny. They only survive in silence. So here is your first rule. Stop letting thoughts walk in unchallenged. Interrogate them at the door. A man who checks his thoughts before believing them is a man his own mind can no longer manipulate. But catching one lie doesn't end the war. Your mind will try again tomorrow. So how do you stop it before it rebuilds itself? That's Law 2. Law 2. Put the thought on trial before you sentence yourself. The second a negative thought appears, don't fight it and don't bury it either. Cross-examine it. Most men make one of 2 mistakes. They believe the thought instantly, or they try to shove it down and hope it disappears. Both make the thought stronger. Instead, run your mind like a courtroom. No claim gets accepted without evidence. Watch for absolute words. Always, never, everyone, nobody. I always ruin things like this. Nothing ever goes my way. I'll never be where I want to be. None of that is fact. It's exaggeration manufactured by fear to turn a bad afternoon into a life sentence. Picture a courtroom where a witness storms in, screaming an accusation, holding zero evidence, no documents, no witnesses. Nothing but volume. Would any real judge accept that? Then why do you accept the exact same thing from your own mind, on repeat, without ever demanding proof? Here's something worth remembering. Feeling incapable is not the same as being incapable. Fear can be loud and still be dead wrong. Next time your mind says you can't do this, stop and ask, what actually proves that? Then ask the better question, what proves the opposite? You'll remember things you buried, comebacks. Nights you kept going when quitting would have been so much easier. Your negative mind keeps a perfect record of every loss and conveniently deletes every win, because a rigged memory is easier to control than an honest one. Trade the exaggeration for the full truth. Instead of "I always fail," try "I failed once, and I've also come through before." That's the entire weapon. Truth starves fear, because fear can only survive on distortion. From today, every dark thought goes on trial before you accept a single word of it. But even after you win in court, one question still lingers. Where do these thoughts keep coming from to begin with? That's Law 3. Law 3. Guard the gate of your own mind. No negative thought just appears from nothing. Every single one was planted by a comment, a comparison, a headline, one careless sentence somebody threw at you years ago that you never put down. What you keep letting into your head eventually decides what comes back out of it. Most men lock their front door every night. They protect their savings, their car, their name. But the door to their own mind stays wide open 24 hours a day. They scroll for hours watching everyone else's highlight reel. They replay their worst memory right before falling asleep. They keep people close who remind them daily of everything they haven't achieved. Then they wonder why peace never shows up. Seneca warned about this long before screens existed. He believed a man slowly becomes whatever he repeatedly stands near, because the mind absorbs its surroundings the same way skin absorbs heat. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. What has your mind been consuming lately? Fear disguised as entertainment, comparison disguised as ambition, negativity disguised as being realistic. If the honest answer is yes, don't be shocked when your own inner voice starts speaking that exact same language right back at you. Picture a man planting weeds in his garden every single morning, then acting confused when nothing ever blooms. That is exactly what feeding your mind poison while expecting confidence looks like. Here's your order. Become the guard at your own gate. Watch what you read. Watch what you watch. Watch who gets your attention. Everything you let in is a vote for the man you're about to turn into. But even a well-guarded mind still takes real hits. People still let you down. Plans still fall apart. So how do you stay standing when life won't cooperate? That's Law 4, and it's where most men quietly give up. Law 4. Let go of what was never yours to hold. Negative thinking survives because your mind keeps fighting wars it was never designed to win. You argue with people who left long ago. You replay conversations that ended years back. You try to control outcomes and opinions that were never yours to control in the first place. And while you're busy fighting battles outside yourself, you lose your grip on the only battlefield that was ever actually yours, your own mind. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus spent 2 years building a business alongside a partner he trusted completely, handling the harder half of the work without complaint. Then his partner cut him out quietly, restructured everything, and kept the company for himself. For months Marcus replayed it. What he should have signed differently, what he missed, who deserved the blame. He was fighting a decision that had already happened, made by someone who had already moved on with his life. Marcus was the only one still standing in that room. A mentor eventually told him something short and blunt. You don't control what he did, you only control what you build next. Stop guarding a door that's already locked from the other side. Marcus didn't feel better overnight, but he stopped replaying it. A year later, he had built something that partner could never touch again. This is where the real teaching starts, and I've kept the name back on purpose until now. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, while war, disease, and betrayal circled him from every direction, and still built one of the steadiest minds history has ever recorded. His entire discipline rested on one blunt sentence: some things belong to you. Almost everything else never did. Your choices, your effort, your character, these are yours. Other people's opinions, bad luck, illness, the past, the future, these never were, and they never will be. The second you blur those two lists, anxiety walks in and refuses to leave, because you start demanding guarantees from a world that never once promised you any. So here's your order. Whenever fear rises, ask one question: is this actually mine to control? If yes, act on it. If no, release it completely. That one habit will save you more suffering than motivation ever could. But even after you release what wasn't yours, one opponent is still standing. It's been with you the longest. Your own past. That's Law 5. Law 5. Your past doesn't get a vote in who you're becoming. There's one place negative thinking hides best: the past. Not because it still holds real power, but because you keep handing power back to it. Every setback, every rejection, every moment you wish you could take back gets replayed so many times it stops feeling like something that happened and starts feeling like who you are. One failed attempt becomes, I'm a failure. One person leaving becomes, nobody stays around. One rough year becomes, this is just my life now. A single chapter quietly rewrites the whole book if you let it play on repeat long enough. Seneca argued that suffering becomes unbearable the moment we stop separating the event from the meaning we attach to it. The event might last a single day. The meaning can hold a man hostage for years. It's rarely the wound itself that breaks a man. It's the story he keeps telling about the wound, long after it already closed. Picture dragging a heavy stone everywhere you go. Someone handed it to you years back and disappeared, but you never set it down. You got so used to the weight it started to feel normal to carry. That's exactly what an old regret does, the moment you refuse to release it. Marcus Aurelius never wasted energy asking why difficult things happened to him. He asked a better question: what is this here to teach me? So here's your order. Stop asking why did this happen to me. Start asking what is this trying to make me become. That single shift turns regret into training and pain into proof you already survived, something you once believed would finish you off. But even once you release the past, one voice keeps trying to pull you back into it. The one living inside your own head. That's Law 6. Law 6. Talk to yourself like a commander, not a critic. There's a conversation running in your head every single day that nobody else can hear or interrupt. And that private conversation shapes your future more than any speech, any book, or any advice ever will. Because in the end, you don't become what other people say about you. You become what you keep saying about yourself, alone, in the quiet, with nobody grading you. Listen closely to that voice, not when you're winning, but the second you fail. That's when its real personality comes out. For most men, it's ruthless. You're useless. You'll never change. Why even bother trying? And because that voice lives inside your own skull, you mistake it for honesty instead of recognizing it for exactly what it is. Years of unchallenged conditioning nobody ever fought back against. Here's something to sit with. If a stranger talked to you the way your own mind does, you'd cut him off completely and never let him near you again. Yet you let that same voice run your entire life, unchecked, for years. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every single night, not to impress an audience, but because he understood something most men never learn. If you don't shape your own mind on purpose, fear will shape it for you by default. You are not that voice. You are the one listening to it. And the moment that distinction clicks, you stop being its prisoner and start being the one giving orders. Starting tonight, when your mind says I can't, answer with, I haven't mastered this yet. When it says I'm not enough, answer with, I'm still under construction. You're not lying to yourself. You're refusing to let fear be the only author of your story. Every sentence you repeat becomes a brick. Repeat weakness long enough, and weakness becomes home. Repeat discipline long enough, and discipline becomes your nature. There's one law left, and it's the one that pulls everything you just learned together. Law 7. Master the quiet, and you master the man. There comes a point where negative thinking loses its grip on you, not because life gets easier, not because pain disappears, not because every problem finally gets solved. It loses its grip because you're no longer the same man who used to believe every fearful sentence his own mind produced. The whole war shifts the moment your mind realizes you're not obeying it blindly anymore. This is the final truth the old Stoics wanted every man to walk away with. Freedom is never given to you by the world. You build it yourself, quietly, on the inside, one brick at a time, on days nobody else is watching. A man can have money, status, and admiration, and still be enslaved to his own fear. Another man can lose everything and still walk free, because nothing outside him has permission to rule what happens inside him. Look at what you just built. You stood at the door instead of believing every thought that knocked. You put fear on trial instead of surrendering to it. You guarded what you let in. You stopped fighting battles that were never yours. You refused to let yesterday write today. You turned your inner voice from an enemy into a commander. None of these look impressive on their own, but stacked together, they build something almost impossible to break: a disciplined mind. Once your mind is disciplined, negative thinking stops running your choices. It might still knock, it might still whisper on your worst nights, but it doesn't hold the keys anymore. Marcus Aurelius wrote something to himself that was never meant for a library full of philosophers. It was meant for tired, ordinary men, dealing with ordinary problems on nights that might look a lot like yours right now. You have power over your own mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength. So starting today, watch your thoughts. Put fear on trial. Guard the gate. Release what was never yours. Learn from the past instead of living inside it. Command your inner voice. Then repeat every single one of these, tomorrow and the day after, until they stop being a decision and start being who you are. Character was never built in one dramatic moment. It's built in 1,000 invisible ones nobody else will ever witness. One day you'll notice something has shifted. The exact situation that used to wreck your whole week barely registers anymore. The exact criticism that used to break your confidence just passes right through you. Not because the world got softer, because you didn't. That's the real win. Not a life free of pain, a mind that refuses to kneel to it. If this changed how you see your own mind, prove it right now. Drop the word discipline below before you close this video and let the moment slide away like every other one you meant to act on. Because reading this won't change you. Only what you do starting tonight will. Guard your mind, command your thoughts, rule your life.